All right, great. We are live and back for another riveting episode with a very special guest here today. But for anybody who is new, welcome to the DPT to CEO podcast, where we are interviewing PTs, OTs, clinicians across the lands about their stories and how they got into business for themselves. If you are out there and you are looking for a way to get started and you're looking for help, please check out some of the links that we have down below with resources, or if you are interested in guidance and coaching, we have space available in our DPT to CEO program. So with that, let's get right into it and welcome our special guest. Thank you for being here, Cristina.
You're welcome.
Yay! For anybody who's like watching live or watching on the recording, you're in your office, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yay! Oh my gosh. We were just talking about before we got on the recording, the background is perfect. Like a perfect example of being in the clinic on your own. And so Cristina and I have known each other now we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary here in a couple months.
Oh, true.
The time has like flown by, but yeah, I'm really excited, to share with you guys a little bit more about Cristina's story, because like you have so many exciting chapters. So I think it'll be really cool to share with everybody. So yeah, I guess like let's get into it there. Maybe Cristina, if you want to take us back to the beginning of this whole adventure and tell us a little bit more about you and how you got into starting your own practice.
Well, I have been working in outpatient orthopedics since I graduated from PT school. And it was always really, really challenging, as we all know, the whole like productivity and billing enough units and seeing so many people and seeing like 2 or 3 people at a time and splitting your attention between people. And I always really, really hated it. Like I would cry because I didn't feel like I could give good enough patient care.
Yeah.
And that I wasn't allowed to, like, there were some people who like really, really needed to be scheduled one-on-one, and I wasn't always allowed to do that. And it was really sad.
Yeah.
And you have to treat a certain way. You have to include certain treatments in your plan per the big box PT clinics, and things that I don't necessarily buy into. So I always hated that. And I was lucky enough in school to get to be part of a clinic where we did treat patients one-on-one, which was fantastic. And it's kind of like always the dream. But then you get out of school and everybody's like, that's never going to happen. But then it did happen. I actually started working for someone else in their private practice, and I started seeing patients one-on-one, and I was part-time at that practice for a long time and got to see dancers at that practice also. And so I hadn't mentioned it yet, but my niche is professional dancers and pre-professional dancers. So I see anywhere from teenage to adults, people really into dance, any kind of dance, ballet, modern, contemporary, lyrical, jazz, tap, pole, whatever, aerial, all of it. I did see some dancers there, but then the reason that I was really inspired to do this on my own, 2 parts. One, there was a Saturday afternoon, I was taking dance class, and 3 people that I knew in class were performing that night, came to me after class and were like, hey, I have this thing. Could you maybe tell me what you think it is? Can you help out? And in like 15 minutes, I helped 3 people that were performing that night. And it was like a nice, quick, easy solution to fix the hitch in their giddy up. And I was like, oh, this is really needed. And there are a lot of people who have like a little nagging thing that if I weren't there, they wouldn't have asked anybody about it. They would have just kept dancing through it, because unfortunately that is a very strong culture in dance. We just all dance through it for a variety of reasons. And so I started out first, I was just going to offer on the weekends, short, quick check-ins, tune-up type of situation. And I started just renting out the dance studio, and I was doing it like every Sunday. In the beginning of last year, in the spring of last year. That was a lot. Even though I was only working part-time at my other job, I was also doing my own things like teaching Pilates and doing massage, and working for another private company, going to people's homes to do PT. So I really kind of had like 5 jobs. But they were all part-time, but it was kind of a lot. And so I was kind of running out of time and energy. And also people couldn't find me. Like people didn't, like I worked at this one place, and then I worked at another place, and then I rented space at different places. But like if somebody was like, hey, that girl Cristina that I saw in dance class, where can I go to see her? I didn't have a place of my own. And so all of this kind of added up to, I ended up taking the Therapy Business Basics course. And I first signed up for it independent study.
Uh-huh.
Despite knowing that I should not have done it. So I signed up for independent study. I think I got sick, and that was when I was working every weekend. I got sick and I didn't finish it. And then you were lovely enough to reach out to me and say, hey, we're doing it live over the course of 4 days. This is a short course. You're welcome to join us since you already purchased the program. And I said, okay. And then became very clear during that week that I needed some accountability and support and feedback to actually get through it. And then at the end of that week, you were like, how cool would it be, you guys, if in 6 months you were your own boss and you had your own practice? That would be rad. That would be amazing. So I kind of already decided, I was like, I'm in. No more self-paced.
Yeah.
I don't do that well at all. And so then I did that. And then exactly 6 months later, I was 100% on my own, and I didn't have an office yet. I was mobile at first. I got old real fast.
Yeah.
And I had a friend that I was renting space from to do massage. And on your suggestion, I said, hey, do you know if there's any more space in your building? Or could you introduce me to the landlord? And she said, oh my God, I want to leave my space. Do you want to take it over? I said, I sure do. And so that's how I got an office 2 months after starting my private practice. So I've been in this office since December. I'm no longer subletting. I'm signed a lease. And so I'm here running my practice, which is called Dancer's Choice Physical Therapy, which is like, if you've ever danced, it's kind of a play on words, because in class, what that means is if they show you the combination and they say, well, you could do your arms like this, you could, whatever you want to do with your arms, dancer's choice. And so I knew for a long time before I even knew that I wanted to start a practice, I was like, if I ever have a PT practice of my own, like I had a name picked out like long before like I even thought I would ever do this.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Cristina. And, you know, like it has been so cool to watch your whole journey over the past year, and like all the different like trials and tribulations and the universe testing you in different ways. You know, and at the same time, like also the universe aligning for you. Like everything's just like falling into place too. Like it's been so cool to see. And so it sounds like kind of like over the past year, you know, you had originally like started your own business, started working for yourself. You were doing some things on the weekends and trying some stuff out, which I do think, you know, like I want to point out to our listeners, you have to start somewhere, you know, even if it's not perfect, like you have to get out there and start something. What did you learn from that experience? Because you've tried a lot of things in the last year. So tell me more about your experience with that.
So I kind of went with the, like, you have to try something. You just have to do it. So I just sort of started before I had a plan. So I spoke to the person from whom I was planning on renting a dance studio space, and I talked out my idea with her. And then I said, well, when do you have availability? And she said, and I thought I was going to try and do like 3 hours, like 30-minute sessions, bam, 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 like client, like 3 hours, 30 minutes. I think initially, I thought I was going to do 5 hours, which is ridiculous. But anyway, so she was like, oh, I have this Sunday. And I said, I'll take them all. And I signed up to rent all of those spaces. She was super awesome. The rate was really generous also. And then I started that, and I was like, I'll do every weekend. It won't get fully booked, and it won't, well, because I thought, oh, it won't be that hard. I know I'm working every Sunday, but it got hard. It got hard just to like plan and then not really know, like maybe somebody was going to try and sign up last minute. And then I decided that I would decrease how many Sundays I was offering this service, but offer it at 2 different studios. So it was one Sunday at this studio and another Sunday at a different studio. And then I had 2 Sundays off where I was working on my business. Well, I will say this is not in my nature to just jump and do a thing. So I made it like a very baby jump. I need a little jump to do these like small discounted, let's just put our toes in the water and see. And it's like not a big deal. But then what happened is people were looking for me. And so by the time I signed up for Therapy Business Basics, I was like, I need my own webpage. At least that was like the bare minimum. But then even when I was doing that in Therapy Business Basics, and we talk about like business setup and talking about getting an LLC, I was like, oh, I don't think we need to spend that money right now. We don't know where we're going with this. We're just like a little side gig, a little side discounted for the community gig. And then I will say that like later on, I was like, why didn't I just do it then? Because eventually I had to do it. And then later I had all these tasks like setting up my LLC, building the website. I can't remember what else. There were a couple other things that were like from Therapy Business Basics that I was like, oh, for now I'll be a sole proprietor. Well, that didn't really serve me in the long run because I want the protection of having an LLC. Kind of a pain. Oh, getting a registered agent, all that stuff. I kind of was like, oh, I don't really need that. So I'll just wait. And then I was like, why? What was I waiting for? Waiting for it to be like, oh, now I really need it. And now I'm under the gun to get it done. That was stupid. So, I mean, I normally like plan everything out. And I want everything to be perfect. And I'm afraid for it to not be perfect. What if it doesn't go well? What if people don't, whatever. And so I just kind of took little steps as I was comfortable, but made myself take a step each time I did something. You were always like, Cristina, every time I talk to you, you're telling me about people who just want to give you their money.
Yeah.
So like, I wasn't really realizing, you know, I'm like stuck in the like, oh no, this challenge, that challenge, this is tricky and it's not perfect. You were like, hey, by the way, it's going pretty well. In case you hadn't noticed, which I hadn't. And so that's why it was super helpful for me to have like the roadmap of DT to CEO, and for you to be like, yes, these are the things on the map and you're passing them and you're going in the right direction. This is how it's supposed to go. Good job. Super helpful to me, because otherwise I just would have been alone in worry and doubt and thinking like, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. It just, it sounds like having a plan has been like really helpful for you. Having like check-in points has been really helpful and everything, you know, and you have continued to like build the courage and confidence to take like baby steps along the way. You know, and you had to like push yourself to get started and to try something out. But like throughout all of 2024, you just continued to take bigger and bigger steps, you know, from like renting out the space originally to like signing up for the live course to signing up for the coaching program to like changing locations to dropping your 800 jobs, you know, to committing to a new space. And they just like they got to be like bigger and bigger steps, and like every single time, you know, it seemed like you were getting more confident. And I think like that's just like a testament to trusting yourself to take the first like initial baby step. Yeah. And so I guess, Cristina, like let's take a pit stop here, like in your journey of, you know, going from working part-time for somebody else to going like all in on working full-time for yourself, which I would just like to point out for the listeners that the first month that Cristina was on her own, you like 3x your like monthly revenue, like from the month before. It was her best month ever when she made the decision to go full-time for herself. And like even now, like she's closing in on 5-figure months. And it's been like less than a year since she and I started working together, you know? And so I think that was really cool, because it was like I think like, at least from the outside, like watching, a really like pivotal point for you where like you finally made the decision to let go of something, where I know like a lot of our listeners and people who are like newer to starting a business, a lot of people view like the part-time job or working for somebody else in the background as like stability, and they will hold very tightly to the quote unquote stability for as long as they can, you know, but then eventually at some point, as you know, like things just start to clash, there's friction, or you're just like running out of time. So can you tell us more about like the experience of what it was like to finally make that decision to leave the job and like how it ended up being helpful?
I think that even after I started the coaching program, I remember I hadn't committed to, and I remember we would have this conversation and you're like, so probably you're going to want to think about that. Like, probably eventually. And then you kind of kept pushing it. And even when I said, like, I think, you know, maybe October, like, I think I don't know if I aligned the date just with like when our coaching program was going to be done or how I picked the date. But it was kind of like, what if I pick this? Like in my head, that's what, since you're making me quit my job, but you weren't making me quit my job, but that's kind of how I felt in the moment. And then I started to realize my other job that was like through a corporation where I worked with people's homes, I realized it was really impeding my ability to schedule my own client. As was my job where I was there for like 4 or 5 hours a day, Monday through Friday. So both of these were impeding my ability to see patients independently on my own because they were taking up chunks of time in my schedule. They were taking up time driving, and they were all paying me less per hour than I would be making if I were working for myself. So it became an opportunity cost. So the longer it became very clear towards the end of my jumping off point is that the longer I stayed, the more I was delaying my actual success when I left. If that makes sense. Like you kind of can't preload your success before you leave, but you can kind of really like delay it a lot, I think. I don't know if that really makes sense, but like I couldn't like build up what I was trying to build for myself while I was still chained to these other gigs. You know, I just didn't have the time. And so just that opportunity cost of like going like, well, I have to drive 20 minutes to their house, be there for an hour, drive 20 minutes to my next thing. And that's now an hour and 40 minutes. We'll round up because of traffic, 2 hours to make this much money as opposed to this much money. I don't know. It's just, and also like the waiting around to be scheduled through these other companies to not know that you are going to be available or not. So then with your own patients who you're trying to prioritize, you're going, well, I would love to see you on Thursday, but I kind of have to wait to see if this other person who truly like you don't want to prioritize the other, but because you're working for someone else, you're kind of like at their mercy. And that never felt good to be like, oh, sorry, patient, loyal client, but could you wait on me and wait around and cater to my schedule? That feels yuck. Ugh. So that was kind of how that happened.
Yeah. Like we just got kind of to a point where it was just like clear on a lot of levels that we were ready for a change, you know, like if we're going to keep growing this business. And I know that there's like a lot to the story, but I guess like if you had to give advice to another therapist who's planning on leaving their job on how to talk to their boss or their supervisor about leaving, what advice do you have about that?
So I did leave out this part of the story. Previously, when I was working at a big box clinic, before I went to work for a private practice, I tried to leave the big box clinic and go down to part-time, and they would not let me. So I left altogether and went to work part-time for somebody else in their clinic. And then that part-time situation led me to have to supplement my income with another job and teaching Pilates and doing massage on the weekends, both of which I'm licensed for. If I could have done something like that, that might have been good. But retrospectively, I would say if that interim private practice job didn't exist and I were just trying to go from a big box clinic, I don't know that going down to part-time would have worked for me because I was always so overwhelmed by notes that I spent a lot of time outside of work doing notes anyway. And I feel like that would have been probably pretty challenging, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that in terms of speaking to an employer, that is an option, like going to part-time. And then in terms of like my last job that I left, I just had to say like, hey, I appreciate the time here and I've really enjoyed working here for this business. And I've decided to go all in working for myself. And that was a little bit of guidance that I got from you. But I think that making it about what a choice that you're making for yourself instead of a choice you're making because of someone else, whether it's a big box clinic or a private practice, instead of being like, I don't want to work here with you. No, just like you don't even have to mention the other person. You're just like, this is the choice you made for yourself. This is the thing that's right for you to do with your life and how you feel that you will be most productive and happy and fulfilled if you're doing your own thing. And then that's what you bring to it. Because no one can argue with that. If you're saying the thing that's best for me that I feel is to go off and do this thing, nobody can tell you what's wrong for you. I mean, they could, but they'd be wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think that makes
So
makes a
I
lot of
think,
sense.
right? Like you can't argue with what somebody's saying they feel is right.
Yeah. And I think that gets kind of into like a little bit that I talked to Marcella about on one of our previous episodes is just like learning to
Mhm.
trust yourself, because like as you like move through this journey and you're opening new chapters and doing new things, a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions, like they may or may not share them with you, but just because like other people have opinions on whatever you're doing doesn't mean that it's not right for you. You're the only one who's going to know if it's right for you, and like you owe yourself the opportunity to learn how to trust yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of the book that I really like by Jen Sincero, the You're a Badass series. She talks a lot about that, about people always giving their opinions. And sometimes it's based out of worry, and sometimes it's based out of their own fear, based out of their inability to identify with what it is that you're going after in life. And so they say things that can just be really damaging to your confidence. And she talks a lot about how to don't listen to those people, and maybe don't even talk to them a whole lot about what you're doing, because you need people who are going to support you, or we would never get anywhere. Right. So I was lucky to have a lot of people that were very supportive of my choices.
And I guess maybe that's like a good segue to talk about, one of the other things that you had noted that you wanted to share on today's episode. Like as we're moving into post-job Christina's like working for herself era, so now like we're in October of 2024 and forward into the new chapter. Something that you had mentioned that is really helpful is being part of the community that you want to be your niche, and you mentioned like having a lot of supportive people around you. And I think like a lot of the different locations like you've worked out of, everybody there has always seemed very supportive of your practice. So tell us a little bit more about like how you've incorporated, I guess, being part of the community that you want to serve.
So I already was taking dance classes moderately regularly, because I really try as a PT to do as I say, so that I don't say do as I say and not as I do. I try to do as I say to do. And so going to class relatively regularly, but then as I started moving this direction, I became much more consistently regular attendee of dance class. And I went to 2 different studios, and there are people in the dance community here who I've known for 20 years plus. And there are people that I've known for a much shorter amount of time. And at both their 2 studios, they're on the opposite side of town, and they offer multiple classes, multiple age ranges, and multiple companies rehearse at both of these spaces. And also Austin has a really large freelance dancer population, meaning that these dancers are dancing for multiple companies. So then there's crossover between these companies, right? The other thing is that in addition to trying to go to class more regularly, I also started seeing dance performances regularly. Started out by just going to see the shows where people I had already treated were performing. And at this stage, actually, and this includes I went to a drill team performance for some teenagers that I was treating and stuff like that. And as well as professional dance company shows. And so I had some patients that were in a lot of these companies. I was going to a lot of dance shows, talking to people afterwards, and I'm not going in and being oh, that's my patient. I'm just hey, how are you? How's it going? How are you feeling? And when you're talking to the performers after the show, the other dancers are oh, is this your PT? And they're yes, she's amazing. You have to go. And so then you just meet people that way. And then I would announce these sessions that I was offering at the end of class. So at the end of every dance class, everybody's oh, there's a performance by so-and-so this weekend. There's a performance. I'm oh, also I'm offering discounted dancer sessions. So I was announcing myself every class. And then also, so now it is I walk into dance class and people go, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. I keep forgetting I need to text you to set up an appointment. Or in the middle of class today, somebody was hey, are you still doing dancer sessions? I said, yes, I am. And I'm going to make an announcement after class about it, because we're going to have a spring break special next week. And then I made my announcement, and then 2 people came over and were okay, it's time. I've heard you talking about it. I got to come in. What do I do? how do I make this happen? And so like people just, you're just always there. They're going to know who you are. They're going to learn what you do. They're going to see how you're interacting with other people, how those people are feeling. And then eventually one day they're going to go, I was thinking about you the other day. I'm glad you're here right now because I would keep forgetting if I didn't see your face. And that's true. Like, I mean, I'm that way. If I don't see somebody's face or I don't do something, the second I think of, I did it today. I texted somebody about something. I was like, oh my gosh, I just needed to get it done. I was like, I can't do anything about this issue right this second or even tomorrow, but I need to touch base with you and get the ball rolling. And so I help people do that by just being there.
Yeah.
And people also are just like really grateful for the support. Like at all the shows that I go to, people are like, wow, it means a lot. Did you come to see us? I'm like, of course I'm going to support you guys. This is my community as much as their, so that's kind of how I've immersed myself.
Yeah. That's so beautiful, Cristina. Like that's so cool what you've been able to do. Like I think it goes a long way when you like build a business to serve a group of people who, like you yourself were a part of, and you go about building the business in a way where you show first that you genuinely care. You continue to immerse yourself into this community because like you want to dance for one, like you want exercise, you want to get out of the house and go do something. And, like it sort of even starts with like filling your own cup in a way.
Yeah. It's my passion. I've always danced and I haven't performed in a while. And last weekend I went to 2 shows in the same day. One show at 5 and another show at 7. And I was really struck in the second show. It was a dance on film festival. And the very first piece was like about collaboration. And I was like, I really miss collaboration. I was telling everybody, I miss performing. I miss working with people. I miss collaborating with other artists, hint, hint. So we're hoping we can grow this even further. But yeah, it is all about that community that I love. Because the other thing that I haven't said yet, I don't think so much, is that I was talking about the culture of like not getting help or not asking for help for physical pain.
Yeah.
In dance is that like what killed me is like going to a dance class and before and after seeing everybody like working on something on their body and then hearing what they're saying about, oh, my trainer told me that I have this condition and that I need to do this for it. And I'm just watching and listening and going, oh, it's a lot of misinformation. Oh, I saw this thing on TikTok. And so I do this all the time now because my this is stuck or this is twisted and whatever. And I have this old injury. And there's also like this like badge of honor. People are like, oh, I have this pain. Oh, I have this pain and I have that pain. People are trying to like one up each other. And then they're trying to do this, that, and the other to treat themselves, but they don't have the right information.
Yeah.
And they oftentimes in the dance community don't seek help because they're either just dancing through it. They're worried if they seek help, they're going to find out there's a big problem and that they're going to have to stop dancing. They're worried about the cost, all of these things. So that's where I was like, wait a minute, I got to help these people. I got to help. I have so much knowledge. I can't just be like, sorry, can't share, not on the clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you want to be able to offer accurate health information for people so that they can stay healthy, or recover from injury. And of course, like, as a dancer yourself, like dancing is really important to you and like your overall like mental health and well-being. And so if you can help other people continue to dance, that's what you're there to do. And like I also just want to point out too, like Cristina said, as she like started going to more dance classes and she's going to all of these performances, like never once, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but never once is Cristina like, okay, I have to go to this dance class and like try to find 5 clients immediately today.
No. In fact, I sometimes kind of dread making the announcement, but I do it because I agreed with you that I would do it.
Yeah.
I kind of don't love making the announcement. It feels a little cheesy, but so I look for the faces in the room who are like excited and like, oh yeah, cool, great. We're so glad you're doing that. And even if it's somebody who's never come to see me, that's like giving me a positive response, I focus in on that, but I know that my delivery could be more confident.
It takes practice.
We're doing it. We're getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the way that you've been announcing things is always like in a way to like make everybody aware of the services, but you're not trying to be like overly salesy about anything, but it's just like
No.
making people aware. So like if and whenever they're ready to ask for help, they know that you're there. Cause that's like another big component. Like a lot of like newer practice owners will be like, okay, I have my LLC, bring on the patients. And most of the time, nobody knows that you exist without you telling them.
And then the other thing is that because I offer a limited number of discounted dancer sessions, those are not on my website. So I need the people who see me in class to know that there's another option than the price they see posted on my website. Because I could just be like, here's my card, check out my website. Here's my Instagram, check out my website. And then they would go and see that price and be like, is she bananas? I can't afford that. Do you know what I mean? So I need them to know like that there's another offering and here's how you get in touch for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Making people aware of what it is that you offer is a good second step after jumping into the community.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I think like it goes a long way as well that, even since like you started working for yourself full time, like over the past, like, I guess this is the 6th month that you've been working full time for yourself now, right?
March. Yeah, 6 months.
Yay, 6 months. Hooray. But even like 6 months into it, you're still making an effort to be a part of the community on a
Oh,
consistent
yeah.
basis. Like you're not stopping because all of a
No.
sudden you have all of these clients. So like you found something that is really helping you to continue to put your name out there and you're keeping up with it.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so cool, Christina. Really cool stuff. Another thing that we were going to talk about, because this is something that you and I have discussed many a time, is your personal schedule and how that cannot be overlooked. When you're working full time for yourself, I think, everybody goes into it being like, amazing, like I have total control over my time. And it is great. But you also have total control over your time and whether you do anything or not. So tell us more about your experience with that.
That is still a challenge. So it's especially tricky because I came from in October being mobile, driving to people's homes and seeing people at a dance studio and renting space for massage here. It was kind of all over the place. And then when I got an office, it was like, okay, well, is there going to be a day that I still go to the studio and see that one person way out on the east side of town? Okay, sure. And then wait a minute. But what if this other patient who I'm now asking to come to the office can only come on the day that I picked to go to the east side? Okay, well, we'll come back. And then, oh no, what if, so even just this week, I had to the east side, to the office on the west side, to the east side again in one day. And we will never do that again. We just won't. We will not do it again. But it's still a challenge to have the courage to say, no, I'm sorry. Because I don't know why I'm thinking in my head, the person's gonna be like, ugh, I'm never coming back. This is too hard, but like, that's kind of what I think, like, that must be what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that it's going to be too complex for people and then they're going to just give up. But it's sort of what happens is I'm like, oh, of course I can do that. And then by the end of the day, I have terrible road rage. I'm starving because I didn't plan well enough to pack enough food. It's not great. And so these are the challenging things, so I'm still trying to figure that out. Also, there's a whole chunk of time in the morning when I am awake that I need to be utilizing and like really maximizing my productivity. There's also a big chunk of time late at night where I need to maximize my productivity by sleeping. So I'm working on fixing, improving, making my sleep schedule better to support the business that I want. And like, so there's a lot of like, okay, what's an ideal life schedule for me? Just like I work at this time and I sleep at this time and I work out at this time and I go to dance class at this time, all that stuff. Because if I don't follow, I can't have all of it if I'm not doing the right. So if I'm not going to bed at the right time, I can't wake up at the right time, I might not get to work out or eat or shower or meditate or journal or whatever. One of these things has to go because I won't have enough time. Right? So then it becomes like, oh, okay, this week we're really committed to working out. And then, oops, we didn't eat breakfast. Or this week we're really committed to meditating every day. We didn't work out at all this week, whatever. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you gotta like, and if something's going to change, you have to change.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing will change, you don't change. So, but also the flip side to that coin is like giving yourself some grace to like,
Mm-hmm.
this is like a new system and we're not going to get it right away. We're not going to be perfect, but we have to continue to try for what we want to achieve. And so we're still trying.
Yeah. And I think like, ultimately like it's never really gonna end. Like once you start a business, like you're gonna kind of perpetually be in a state of like trying. But I think like as long as you are trying and like you're putting in some effort most days, most weeks, most of the year, you're gonna get where you want to go. And like I think you've done such a good job at being consistent even when things like feel scattered, you have like ups and downs with your schedule or, like the number of patients coming in or not, or whatever, like life factors going on. You are somebody who has like consistently shown up since day one. And like, I think that's why you are in the place that you are today. You're doing great, Cristina.
Thanks. I think the other thing that really reinforces my desire to continue to try to change and improve my schedule and all of that is that like I know I want to get things done and I know how I want to get things done and I know that I want to feel successful in my endeavors. And sometimes I kind of screw myself over by doing other behaviors like staying up too late or sleeping too late or whatever. And so then if I really want to make it happen, then I have to do something like spend my whole weekend catching up so that I achieve the goal, right? And like and then I'm just gonna get burned out and I don't really want to do that. So then I go, okay, well, whose fault was that? So like just keeping that end goal in sight and comparing it to like what are my options and how to spend my time.
Yeah. And I think, like I think that brings up like a great point with like I think like in life and in business, you're always going to be faced with decisions and for everything that you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And for everything that you say no to, you're saying yes to something else. Every decision that you make, I think like you said, you have to weigh against like what is the long-term vision and decide like is this if I decide things a certain way, is this going to ultimately like support me on my path towards my goals. And we're not perfect. And I this is like totally off the topic. I just finished listening to The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And like she talked about in that book about how like everybody thinks they're the exception to the rule.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know what I am listening to right now, and I think you have read, is The Gift of Imperfection by Brene Brown.
Oh, really? No, I have read How to Be an Imperfectionist, but I'm sure that they have a lot of like overlapping things. What have been your takeaways from that book?
So she talks a lot about courage, compassion, and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And she's talking a lot about habits, addictions that we use to numb ourselves from feeling scary feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And how that kind of numbs us to all the feelings. And that when we have a moment of feeling something anxious or scared or whatever, if we can connect with somebody, which does require courage and compassion for ourselves, we can build our ability to have compassion for others. And that's not a very concise thought, but that's a lot of the things that are in that book. She's talking about the other concept is like wholehearted living, being able to really truly be who you are, to like laugh and dance and sing without being concerned of what other people are going to think about you. There's a lot of stuff about like being afraid of what other people think about you and how that we kind of like making ourselves small or making ourselves be a certain way so that people think what we want them to think of us, which we don't have control over anyway. Yeah, all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great. You should listen to it.
Yeah. I think I'll add it to my book list for this year. But I think like it's like a good word, I think, to sort of summarize like a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is like imperfection, and for anybody who's listening who is like working on their business and stuff and maybe feeling frustrated that things aren't like 100% perfect. I'm sorry you feel frustrated, but it will never be perfect. Like I think we have to get comfortable with the imperfect and grow to love the charm of it. because it's always going to be there. And so with that, Cristina, as we're, sort of like winding down with our episode today, I would love to hear from you. And this is like a little bit like on the spotty, I suppose, but if there's somebody listening out there, who is where you were January 2024, like maybe just getting started and trying to like figure things out, feeling a little bit like shaky in their boots about like working for themselves, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for a budding new business owner?
Start now. You can get an LLC and earn nothing in it, and it will be ready day one when you are ready to start earning money in that LLC.
Yes.
So go for it. And also, if you have a big box clinic job with a great paycheck, pay for your LLC now. Don't put it off.
That's smart.
Right? Like when you have like that steady income, that's when you want to pay for those things. Because that was the other thing I noticed when I put things, I'm very frugal and I like do my research on stuff, but like I didn't, for some reason, in all my like, I'm going to save money and wait. I didn't think about that. So start now, including all the stuff, the LLC. Done is better than perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
Done is better than perfect, because nobody's going to notice if it's perfect.
Nope.
Somebody might even look at what you think is perfect and be like, oh, did you notice this? And you don't want to really hear that at that point, but done is going to get you a little step closer to where you want to be. And also, just to like circle back to look for a second to Brene Brown's book, she also talks about perfectionism and overworking and overthinking as one of those numbing effects. So to combat the fear of like, oh no, what if it's not perfect? What if people don't like it? What if people think it's ugly? What if people think it's stupid? What if people think I'm charging too much? Whatever. Oh, well, let's work on it longer and perfect it and like file out, soften the edges and blah, blah, blah. Like that is a avoidance tactic. Mm-hmm. And I would agree that that's for me too. So like, don't let perfection get in your way of making progress. And 3, pick somebody to work with that can be your guide, that you get along with and you really like and you vibe with, because I was doing a different mentorship program previous to this, and it wasn't about building my own business, but I did not vibe with that person. Like I kept paying money and I kept going like, this is not really, but like the second I met you, I was like, I love her. She's great. We communicate really well with each other. And so like, even if I can't imagine, even if Morgan was not the person to pick for you, just like find the person. Like, I think you're great. I think everybody should work with you. But if somebody for some reason, and you talk about this all the time, like when you're meeting somebody to check in and like see if you're a good fit, like that should happen on both sides, and that you always talk about how like if you're not a good fit, you'll try to direct people to somebody who is a good fit, whether that's for PT or whatever. So I think that's the other thing, is like find somebody. And also, this is like a 3B, 3.1 or whatever answer is, don't feel like getting a coach or asking for help is dumb or weak. Don't feel like you should be able to do it all on your own, because it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy what we're doing. And so like, you shouldn't be telling yourself like, oh, I could probably just do it all on my own, or I should be able to do it on my own, and make the investment, because it's totally worth it. Like you have to invest in yourself. I think that would really be my 30th. It's like 5 answers. Sorry.
I love it. No, I think like I mean I totally agree with you on everything. And I love that you brought up like on the last piece there, like the vibes thing. And like I think I've always worked with coaches and that's always been really helpful, but even just in terms of like different like collaborations that you might do as a business owner with like other companies, the vibes are like trust your intuition. If it does not feel good and it does not feel right, it's probably not the right decision. Yeah, because there have been many a time where I'm like, I should do whatever. And, it always is coming from like a place of fear rather than like excitement and confidence about what it is that I'm doing. The vibe should always be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your advice, Coach Cristina. So as we were wrapping up today, we talked a lot about your journey and where you're at now. But if you don't mind, give us like maybe like a casual elevator pitch, I suppose. Like give us a synopsis again of like what your practice is and who you help and where we can find you.
Yeah. My practice is Dancer's Choice Physical Therapy. and I'm in Austin, Texas, and I help professional dancers, pre-professional dancers, avid recreational dancers get rid of their pain and dance pain-free and prevent future injuries, improve their performance. You can find me online at dancerschoicept.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Cristina J. DPT.
Yeah, she's all over the internet. Okay, all right, awesome, cool. Well, thank you so much, Christina, for sharing all of that. And I know like we really talked about a lot of great pieces of advice today. So for anybody out there who is like just starting this journey, or maybe like you're in the thick of it and you're just feeling some type of way, some type of not so positive way about things, just know that there is a path forward and you're not alone. Every single one of us has felt the same way that you do about the business and felt like all the fear, the worries, the indecision, and know that by taking baby steps forward that are imperfect, you're going to be able to make it. It just kind of comes from believing in yourself and trusting yourself first, and then the results will follow. As always, if you are looking for help, you have any questions on anything, definitely check out the links in the description below. We'd love to help you out. But otherwise, thank you, Christina, so much for being here.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one.